Another Bluejay Shakeout podcast is here. Josh Peterson, the head coach of the Creighton cross country and track programs. Chris Gannon joins me as always. Chris, how are you? We are in mid-February and everybody is sick.
Yeah, everybody's sick, but it's 70 degrees outside, so it's better than it was when we talked a few weeks ago and it was -4. Yeah, it's been awesome. We've been able to get outside the last week and a half or so and just get some really good work in. Unfortunately, it's the wrong time of the year to be putting big work in, but it's still getting a good change up to kind of get some vitamin D rolling and enjoy a little sunshine and warmth. So looks like potentially snow again this weekend. So we'll see. Wrapping things up with indoor in the next 2 weeks, and then let's take some good weather into the outdoor campaign.
Yeah, it's so funny. Last time we talked, I think the time before that we talked, it was about adapting and adjusting, and that usually meant to the bad weather. Oh, hey, we can't go outside. We have to do more work inside. Get a week like we've had in Omaha lately, and it's, whoa, let's take advantage of this. Like, is this the fun part of getting to adjust to weather that, like, I guess we probably get once a week or once a year, rather, at this time of year each and every season?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. One of the kids in their workout log yesterday was like, "Oh man, run was harder today than I expected." I go, it was 75 degrees. Your body's not used to that. You're probably, just not acclimated to that either. I would say it's a balance of it, to be honest with you. Like as soon as it gets nice out, the kids want to get outside and rip, which totally get. At the same time, we're backing off with Big East next week, and it's not necessarily time to rip a workout. So it's just kind of this balance. We tried to give them a little bit of freedom and like, hey, it's okay if we push pace, or we call it push and P. It's okay to push P for a little bit today, but hey, we also need to be very cognizant of XYZ. So specifically for my group yesterday, I know that they'd want to rip since it's nice out, but it was supposed to be an easy run. So I let them go, you know, 8-ish miles easy. And then at the end of that, I let them go, 2 by 30 seconds at 5K pace, 2 by 30 seconds at 3K pace. The crazy part is like I've talked about pushing P and ripping. One of the girls was like, "Oh yeah, my 30 seconds at 5K pace was at 5-minute miles." I'm like, "Great, let's go run 15:30 for 5K. I can't wait." Because we're not. But so that's just kind of how we've Faders and I have learned over the years that you can't. As soon as it gets nice out, kids want to get outside and run fast, take advantage of that. And we fully get that, but if we did that for a full workout, we'd be in trouble. So letting them do a little bit of something yesterday, a little bit of turnover like that's not going to hurt us fitness wise or put us in the hole. They still get the sense of getting outside and taking advantage of it, but I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, that's a little quicker than our 5K pace, but
Yep, I think all of us runners this week have probably done something where we're like, ooh, maybe I went a little too hot there because it's literally hotter outside. But hey, no fears. It's going to get really cold again over the next few days. Chris,
absolutely.
it's been a few weeks since we talked. It was the very end of January. Since then, a couple of different meets. That was right ahead of Iowa State. You also went up to Brookings, South Dakota. More school records fell, which has been so cool. Like, I know we've talked about that a couple of times on the podcast since the calendar flipped to 2026. And some of your runners really chasing after some big personal goals for themselves.
Yeah, it's been a fun couple weeks. I know we had originally planned to pod last week, and I was like, hey, let's push a week just in case something really exciting happens. We went to Iowa State. Noah set a school record, and the 3K. Honestly, he probably could have run faster. He negative split the whole thing and closed really, really well. It just wasn't a race for him to have anybody to run with. And then Jake obviously ran really, really well in the mile with 4:04. Annika ran great in the 800. There was some other performances there. Logan ran well in the 400, and then it was awesome to see. And then we started talking with coach at South Dakota State about they had a guy go 4:01 and 4:03 in that same race at Iowa State, and South Dakota State had a home meet this last weekend, and so Rod DeHaven, he's a true running legend. He's a 2000 Olympic trials marathon champion for the U.S. Rod's the coach at SDSU. Really, really good guy. Great for the sport. Does a lot of really good things. And so Rod and I started talking right away that Friday at Iowa State about trying to set up a fast mile. At their home meet this past weekend, they had two guys. They were trying to get to that magic 3 something for a sub 4 or a mile number, and Jake is on the cusp of that as well. So we tried to set that up last weekend. It didn't quite happen. Their guy went 4:00.8, I think. Jake was right where he needed to be at 1200 to go, right at 3 flat at 1200, and just didn't have the gas after a couple of weeks of racing back to back. Oliver ran really, really well, though. He was the only other person that ran South Dakota State. Oliver went 4:11, I think, which is just off of his PR from Estonia last spring or last summer. And so yeah, we're pretty excited. We go to Nebraska this week, and some kids this week really, really backed off, such as Jake, and a few of those people are trying to rest up for Big East next week. But we got some other people just trying to rip a fast one this Friday.
Kind of going back to the conversation that we were just having, or maybe we did a couple of weeks ago, but just the idea of pushing yourself at this time of year, knowing that it's, of course, a long season and there are many more races to go, and why maybe this was the time for Jake to really chase after that 3:59 point whatever. Why was this the right time to try that?
There's a lot of factors in that. Well, once you move to outdoor, you're on the 1500, so we're limited on opportunities there. The other thing is just from a workload and periodization table, it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to try to that this week at Nebraska. One, the race wouldn't be there. I think the fastest entry at Nebraska this Friday is a 4:10 mile, and that's just not going to get done. Where he had a group of guys at Iowa State and a group of guys at South Dakota State that were in that similar pace, similar goal. So setting that race up and having someone to do that with makes that task a lot easier. Running a fast mile is hard. Running a fast mile by yourself is really hard. And then the other thing is that we're not going to run Jake in the mile at Big East. Big East is next week. The Big East conference is just so deep. I think right now Jake is at 4:04. I think he's top 10, but like at the bottom of the top 10 in the mile, I think like the top 7 spots in the mile in the Big East are all sub 4. So what do we get out of that, of running him in the mile? You maybe get a point, and he has to run prelims and finals in that mile. Maybe if you get lucky, you might get 3 points if the race goes the right way. But there's so many guys in that race that are already sub 4 that it's not going to be a all-out race like that. It's going to turn into something very tactical. And based on the fact that it turns into something tactical, you never know. Jake could end up third. But that's just a prelim and a final of that is not setting our team up with what could end up being no points. And so what we'll do is we'll run Jake on the DMR relay, put him on that mile leg of the DMR, and we know collectively as good as our team is between Jake and Evan and looks like probably Logan in the 400 leg and probably Ryan Hendrickson on the 800 leg. That DMR team does look like a team that can contend for a good number of points. That's just a race, and then those same group of guys swapping somebody out for Logan. Logan's not going to run an 800, can probably come back and run a 4x8 the next day. So collectively, that's a better team move, a better team strategy heading into Big East than having Jake try to chase a sub 4 mark at that event.
You mentioned indoors coming to a close, and we talked about the difference in this versus outdoors, I believe in our first pod of the new year back in January. The Big East Indoor Championships are next week as we get recording this one today on Wednesday, February 18th. That mindset shift as like you now move on from that. Like, what is this time of season like, given that things are about to change just in terms of the actual, I mean, the course size, right? The track size, you're going to be outdoor. What does that look like right now?
It's honestly a really interesting 2-week period of time. So we'll have a group of kids that will race this Friday and their indoor season will be done. And then we have a group of kids going to Big East competing at a championship meet next week at one of the best conferences in the nation. Uh, and they have to be, you know, in a different place, and so even their training set up a little bit differently. Like that group of kids is doing a little bit of work this week, whereas the kids that are going to be done this week are not doing much this week. They're ready to peak and run fast. That group that's racing next week, we're doing just a little bit of work this week to, you know, to keep everything where we need it to be, and then it backs off next week for them to run fast next week. So that it's just a unique spot, if you will. Um, I think that it's an exciting spot too. You know, we've talked about it before in the fall, and you know, it holds true. Is that the Big East from the distance side is one of the best conferences in the nation. I was joking with one of my distance buddies yesterday. He's a high school coach, and we were talking just about some of how crazy some of these marks are in the Big East right now. So I sent them the Big East Conference Athletes of the Week list. And so this is wild. A kid from Butler went 7:43 in the 3K, and he was honorable mention athlete of the week. A guy in the 5K went 13:29, honorable mention athlete of the week. A female went 4:31 in the mile, honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
You know, it's because you know, Marco Langan goes 7:30 whatever. He goes in the 3K, and girl went 2:03 in the 800. Right, like it's such an elite conference. Just like I said, you know, 4:04 is barely top 10 in the mile. It might not even be actually 10. It might be down to 12 by now. So I think that that's just this opportunity to like truly measure up, and we talked about in the fall. Like you're stepping to the start line with the best of the best, and it's an exciting opportunity. You know, it's incredible opportunity. It is the measuring stick of all measuring sticks, and so the exciting part or the fun part is that, you know, this is only our second year competing at Big East Indoor, and that this wasn't an opportunity even just a couple of years ago. I joked with you right before we hit record. It's kind of funny to, and we said with Jake too, is to be disappointed with a 4:08, you know, or a 4:04 in the mile. Just speaks to how far our programs come in just a short couple of years. I remember when Jake broke 4:10 for the first time, and that was, you know, a big moment for our program. That was only 3 years ago. Like, that's crazy. And before that, nobody in the history of the school had ever broke 4:10 in the mile. And it's the same thing on the ladies' side right now too. Is like, you know, Annika's just throwing her name all over every entire record book. Well, Annika breaks the indoor 800 record. Well, technically, I believe Quinn might have broke it the race before. You know, it's one of those things that I would state, like Quinn runs 2:15, or Quinn's time would have been a record just a couple weeks ago, right? But it's already been reestablished, and so it's one of those things that the program itself is just elevating so quickly, and with excellent depth, and it's just fun to be part of that. So yeah, there's big goals for outdoor. You know, Fayers has goals for what that group of guys in the mid distance is going to do. Got goals for what our sprint crew is going to do, and our 10K crew is going to do, and our javelin squad. So it's an exciting time of year. It's yeah, it's unique though.
Yeah, it definitely is. One more, Chris, and then we'll get everyone on out of here. You know, and I'll talk about my marathon training with you from time to time on the pod, and how, you know, it's all building to this peak. I hope in a couple months from me now. My race is at the end of April, and so I'll have these key workouts along the way, a key long run along the way, and I'm hoping to do something, but knowing, hey, you still got a couple of months to go. So different with a championship, essentially in the middle of the season, and then another one to come later. What are those conversations like in terms of mindset of wanting to peak now, but also knowing there are other times that you want to peak later on?
Yeah, we talk about that pretty regularly, pretty openly. Like, hey, indoors great, but outdoors always the goal for us. Yeah, based on a lot of factors, you know, especially with the young athlete. Like, it's hard to double peak. That's always hard, regardless. And then even too, just from the time, especially for our young athletes, to have that turnaround be from cross to indoor and then to outdoor, and just looking always at the big picture, and outdoor being, you know, more time to build and better access to hopefully weather and facilities and resources. You know, it's just giving us a bigger platform to build and all of that success on. So yeah, that's the goal. We always say, hey, we want to run fast indoor, but outdoors where we want to be our best. And I think that, we're in a pretty good place for that. I've been talking about that a lot with my 10K crew right now. So those kids have been running 3Ks and 5Ks indoor. And it's kind of a different thing. Like, well, especially if they're their first year in the 10K group, they're not hitting necessarily some of the 5K times they might have hit a year ago, in which they see frustration in. And I go, but we haven't run that type of speed work or that type of, speed endurance or that type of race specific 5K type work right now, because we've been building a much bigger base for 10K work, which is the goal for outdoor. So I think that there's just some of those factors that come into play that they're hard to digest sometimes, but at the same time, I think that everybody understands that end of April, first part of May is where we're trying to be, and that's what we're going to continue to build towards.
Absolutely, and we will continue to build towards that on the podcast. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, multiple races to recap and talk about the Nebraska tune-up, which is coming up this weekend, as we mentioned earlier, and then the Big East Indoor Championships next week in Chicago, and then on into outdoor season. The next race will come in March. Next time, Chris, we talk, it will be March. We'll be getting very close to longer days in terms of sunlight, the sunset. I get to drive home in the sun. I'm looking forward to it. Well, Chris, good luck to you. Good luck to your team over the course of the next couple of weeks. Looking forward to our next conversation here on the pod.
I appreciate it, John. Take care. Have a good one.
Like and subscribe on the way out the door, everybody. Thanks for watching the Bluejay Shakeout podcast. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.